I'm Scott. Happy to be here with you guys. I'm not primarily a guitar player. I'm primarily a bass player, and then became much more focused on production and songwriting as sort of like the main thing I was thinking about, and then guitar became a really useful tool in that area. So I kind of came at guitar as a tool for songwriting. The bass is kind of hard to create a full sort of harmonic world out of sometimes. So the guitar and the piano or keyboard, I felt like were better ways to kind of think of more music at once, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I arrived at the guitar. I don't always write on the guitar, but I do a lot. It's a great tool for that. So I'd love to real quick just like hear a bit about you guys. Just I don't want to spend all class getting introducing, but just hear about maybe who your interests are or what your interests are. So if we could maybe super quick just go around and sort of tell me your name and either your favorite guitar player or favorite songwriter would be great. Anybody want to start? We can bop around quick. You got it?
Yeah, my name is Jess. My favorite guitar player is Morgan Wallen.
Is who?
Morgan Wallen.
Okay.
My name is Gavin. I like Santa Barbara.
Okay.
I'm Damon. I'm Apple.
Okay.
I'm Evan, and yeah, I like Santa Barbara too.
Okay.
I'm Colby. I don't really have one.
Okay.
I'm Harrison, I like my favorites.
Sam, I think my favorite's Yvette Young.
Okay.
Gavin, I don't really have one.
Okay.
I'm Vanessa, and I don't think I have one.
Don't have.
My name's Hayden. My favorite's probably Sinister Gates.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. Well, I'm Scott. My favorite guitar player and producer and songwriter is Prince, always. But cool. So I wanted to just talk to you guys about a couple techniques or ideas that I've used to write songs, and things that don't necessarily require that you have like a mastery of the fretboard or of music theory or of your instrument. So one, and maybe we can play the recording of it, is a song. I play in a band. I played in this band for 15 years. We're based in Philadelphia. I lived there for 10 years and then moved up here a little while ago, so but I still am down there playing all the time. And we got hired to write a song for a PBS show and for kids. And it's like a puppet show. You can try that. And the song was supposed to be about like teamwork and like collectively, solving problems and that sort of thing, whatever. And so maybe I'll play you the recording if we can, and then I'll sort of talk through what's happening and how we kind of arrived at those chords. Because they're really kind of easy, but they have a nice kind of color palette to it. Are you able to play something on Spotify?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Okay, go ahead.
ILL space GOOTS. That's the artist, and then the song. It's called "Working Number 2 Together." Should have like a bluish cover.
That's not the right one. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, and I can maybe just play it for you.
Sorry. Sure.
can lend you one. If you need an ear, I can lend you one. If you need a voice, I can lend you one. Need help with a choice, I can give you some, baby. If you need a shoulder, I can lend you one. Need advice from someone older, I can give you some. Remember what I told you, that it's all for one. And one for all of y'all. It's all for one, for all of us. It's all for one, for all of us. It's all for one, for all of us. You. It's all for one, for all of us. It's all for one, for all of us. It's all for one, for all of us. You too. I'm feeling blue because I think I need a blue for what I'm trying to do. I can't hang around.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tell, it's written for kids. But that song does this thing that I think is an easy technique that anyone who knows any chords could do, which is it changes one note of the chord to change sort of the color of it. So the primary part of the chord stays the same, right? So if you've ever looked at maybe a chord chart for a song and it's like C6 or like some of these chords that you're like, well, what the, I don't know that, I know C. All that's doing is moving one note to another position that gives it a bit more color, right? So for instance, in that song, we're starting on this E minor shape, and I move this note up to here. Kind of sounds like, if you know, like James Bond kind of. They're just moving that one note, right? So you get this, that's pretty solid, like minor, doesn't have a whole lot of color to it, but then when we put this sixth on top, it's got a little bit more sort of mystery or whatever to it, right? So you could do that with any chord, right? So say we take, what's a chord everyone in here knows?
G.
G, right, okay. G, right? Let's move any one of these fingers, right? If we move the bottom one, it's going to change a lot, because that's going to be the foundational part. But if we move the top, let's say we move it to here. Put this is now the ninth of the second on top, right? If we put those together, it's kind of a nice, like, it's not changing the chord entirely, right? We'd still call it a G chord, but we start to introduce a little bit more color to it, right? Well, what's another chord we all know? D, right. I don't know if you guys have come across this, like there's a common chord you run into, D, you add the king E. So that makes it a sus chord for a second, right? Sus, right? Yeah, I know. It's super sus. Which basically just gives it like, I don't know, these are things you can do to kind of allow you to stay in one sort of position, but kind of give a little bit of like motion in the color without really changing much. So we could change a bunch of other notes there too. What if we lowered this note? So then we get D major 7. It's really pretty. We go between the two. I'm interested in that, right? So sort of looking at opportunities to take a chord that you know, and instead of going like, what's the next chord, going, how can I alter this chord to maybe make it a little bit more interesting, right? Let's try a couple more, and then maybe at the end of this I'll have you guys get a guitar in your hands and we'll try it together. What's one other chord we want to C. All right, so C. If we lift up this finger, get that major 7 sound again, really pretty, right? This note up, get a 9, really pretty, right? We could do, we could try this. To me that's pretty, I don't know, probably a little ugly to some of you. Sharp 11, it wants to go somewhere, right? So, this idea of, guitar is really interesting because it's so shape-based, right? Well, not every instrument is like that, right? So, I think it's in that way it can be a little bit of like a prison of the shape. You're like, C, that's C, I know C. But if you can start to look at, with most open chords, it's like, look, my pinky's hanging out. It's got nothing to do, but look for maybe an interesting place to alter the chord, right? And in most of these voicings, you're going to have a finger that is like available to potentially add a note that gives it more color or change a note that gives it more color. And so it kind of, I don't know, it's just a way to, say you want to write a song where the chords are not moving super quickly or a lot between different big shapes, but you want to still have a bit of motion. I think it's a great way to kind of introduce a bit more color. And when I say color, I realize that probably sounds a bit abstract, right? But I sort of think of major and minor chords as being like a bit like primary colors, right? So this is like, these are your reds and your yellows and your blues, and they're great. And especially like next to each other, they can make really interesting, like stark differences with each other. But once you start to add in some of those other notes, some of those sevens and nines and things like that, and again, I don't think you need to know a lot of theory for this. You could just try moving your fingers around on a chord that you already know, and if it sounds good, it's good. You don't need to know what it is necessarily, and I bet you, Mr. Schumacher could help you go, oh, that's a 9, that's whatever, right? But that's when you start to get into maybe more nuanced colors, like, ooh, that's a light purple. I like that. Like that's got a little bit more nuance, and it's between the major and the minor, and it has a bit more emotionality. I think harmony, which you know is, if I play one note, it's got no mood to it, right? The moment I add another note, I'm kind of happy, kind of unsure, kind of settled, right? The moment we combine more than one note, we start to cultivate a mood, right? So I think with most music that we listen to, the harmony is where the mood is coming from, right? And I sort of start to think about, I teach like songwriting and production mostly, right? And so I just break down music into 4 sort of components, or main sort of pillars that I think about, and they overlap a little bit. They're not totally distinct and separate, but you've got your rhythm, right? Drums, that sort of thing. You've got your bass, right? Foundation, harmony, and then melody, right? And harmony is really, I think, the biggest decider of like mood or feeling of a piece of music, right? So when you can get outside of only primary colors, you can start to get into more interesting moods and feelings, right? I think like there are, emotions are more complicated than primary colors, right? So I think the music that we like oftentimes is kind of poking at that and using a bit more nuanced colors. So okay, that's one thing I wanted to show you, is taking a chord you already know and altering one note. And I'm going to try to keep an eye on time so that maybe at the last few minutes we'll try that. I'd like to see what you guys come up with. Another thought is, and I might have you play another song if that's all right,
Yeah.
is, and I know Schumacher said you guys haven't done a lot with like bar chords or movable chords, right? Mostly open chords, right? You know what I mean by open chords, right? It's using open strings, right? So any chord that is not using open strings, though, on the guitar is movable, right? So, and they don't all have to be these big, like this is a hard chord to play, right? For, especially as you're beginning, you've got to build a lot of strength with this finger. Like, it takes a little while, it's frustrating. And then at the end of the day, all you've got is this major chord. So it's a lot of work to move a major chord, right? But there are smaller voicings, right? So even if I just went, I'm just pairing 2 notes, right? And now I can move this, right? So I'm going to show you a song that the voicing is a bit more complicated to move, but it's going to show you this idea of, if we have a chord that we like the sound of, we probably would like the sound of it somewhere else too, right? And that there's going to be a continuity when the spacing of a chord is the same and it moves. That's like there's a consonance there just based on everything moving the same. That even if it's not, even if it doesn't make a ton of sense in the key, it's still going to sound like it makes sense to our ears, because we're like, yeah, well, that same thing I'm familiar with that shape, but now I'm just hearing that shape somewhere else, right? So our ears might let us get away with a bit more kind of things that are not just rooted in the key, right? Could you play same band song Stranger?
Yep.
I'm just going to hear a little bit of it.
If you didn't know me, would you think I was a stranger? Could you love a stranger? Did you know I was a stranger? If you didn't know me, would you think I was a stranger? Could you love a stranger? Did you know I was a stranger?
That's the section I'm looking at, so.
What if I called your phone? I said, you said, I said. What if I told you that hell got a spot and it's hot and they saving for me? What if I can't wait to sit there? Would you prefer it was heaven? And I'm saying I can't wait to get.
So, that section, there's a few other interesting things about that song, but taking this chord, it's a great chord that if you know E major, I can show you a chord that I think is really pretty and cool, and all you have to do is move one finger. So, if that's the only thing you take away from today, I hope you take this voicing because it's cool. So, you've got your E major, and I move this finger from the A string to the E string. You get this, I'll be honest, I never thought about what the name of this chord would be. It's like an E over F sharp, I don't know. It's very pretty though, it's got all these open intervals in it. So, I started with that chord, and I was like, ooh, I like that chord. So I'm going to move it. Move it up here. And that's the whole chords for the verse, right? It's the same voicing. And we're in the key of E, so it works. And I'm moving one thing, if sort of thinking about this technique of any chord is movable if you're not using open strings, right? Granted, on this one I did use an open string, so I had to do the bar. But on smaller chords, which I'm going to encourage you to find smaller chords, not every chord needs to use all 6 strings. I would say most chords don't, actually. I think in the beginning when we learned the open chords, we're using the whole guitar, we're strumming through the whole guitar, and that's awesome. But that doesn't need to be the rest of your life, right? You can 2 notes, 3 notes, plenty, right? But so, move this up. I moved it up 7 frets, right? 7 frets and 5 frets are 5ths and 4ths on the guitar, right? So, I mean, we can look at like the Ramones, right? These, which would be like G, C, D, right? Those are like the same relationship. If you're trying to move a chord and you think, what will work? Where will moving it work? Moving it either 5 or 7 frets up your guitar is almost guaranteed to sound pretty cool, right? Because it's going to be, those are perfect intervals, right? So if everything is moving a perfect interval, how bad could it be, right? And we can move that voicing in other places too. So I want to show it to you with a smaller voicing, right? So let's pick one note. I'm going to pick one more note and one more note. And now I can move this. Let's move it 5 frets. Move it 7 and back. And now I have an easy movable voicing, 3 notes. I don't have to bar anything, right? So anytime you're not using open strings, you can move it, right? And I think that could be helpful just in terms of having a continuity that is not based in the key, but it's based in the shape, right? Because guitar is so shape-based all the time. Okay, cool. Does that make sense, by the way? Am I like rambling, or is any of this making any sense to anybody? All right, cool. Feel free to ask any questions if you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about, or could you explain that more clearly? Okay, I'll show you one other sort of idea, and then I want to see how we're doing the time. It's great, we're doing great on time. I want to maybe try to do some of this with guitars in your hands. So the other idea, and this is more rooted in the, I know you guys talked a little bit about chord theory yesterday, right? And you talked a little bit about Roman numerals, how things relate. I think if you want my 2 cents, the best way to learn harmony or making progressions or doing things is using those Roman numerals, because harmony is all about relationship, right? It doesn't matter if it's C or F or G. If it's 1, we know what that means. We know what everything else means, right? It's all about the spacing from one set of notes to another set of notes. And we can move those things around. I won't say all keys are created equal. They have different feelings to them or whatever, but the relationships are all the same. So if you can start to learn in that way and start to think about things in terms of their function, not in terms of their name, I think it makes it a lot easier to see the connections between different songs and different music that you might like. You might go like, wow, why do those songs sound so similar to me? And then you look and you're like, oh, it's 2-5-1. It's the same progression. They're just in a different key. And that's why they sound so similar. And you can start to see the function of things, which is really helpful. And I came to that a bit later. If I wish someone had told me that when I was your age. I had a church gig for years, and the singers would always be like, oh, can we just do that in a different key? And I would have learned it in this one key, and it was like, uh-oh, I guess. And then I started learning them not in any key. I just started learning the Roman numerals for every song. And then it was like, can we do it in a different key? Like, sure, no problem. And so now that's how I always learn everything. It's just based on the function. Because the key is like, it's almost irrelevant, right? If we know how everything relates to each other. Did you have a question? Or were you just switching? All right, cool. So I think that's really helpful to start to introduce that. So even songs, I think the best way to do it is take songs that you already know and just like put that analysis on it and go, cool, 1, 4, 5. Great, I understand this now. And then you might start to see connections between songs. There's only so many chords, right? I'm sure you looked at the Roman numerals. How high did you go in Roman numerals? Where? 6, right? I mean, 7 gets a little weird. I don't know if you guys, yeah, it's like, but under 10, right? So, I mean, it's only so many options. Okay, so I'm going to show you one other sort of simple, very guitarish technique, and then I'm going to talk about one thing sort of related to chord theory, and then we're going to play a little guitar. So another thing that I like is there's something called voice leading. Does anyone know what voice leading is? I don't know how much other sort of music classes you guys are taking, or if anyone sings in like choir or anything like that. What is voice leading? Have a mini hand of someone? No?
It's like, isn't it when like a note like applies, like it leads to another thing?
Yeah, right. So if you think about it, imagine. Does anyone here sing in choir or sing? In 5th grade. All right, that's all right. Hey, listen, don't shy away from your history, dude. So, in a choir, though, you're our expert right now. So, did you sing in the choir too? Yeah. No.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
All right, we got our choir guys here. So, in the choir, are you often having to jump from one note to like notes really far away, or is it usually more of a line that makes sense? It's a line that makes sense, right? So that's called voice leading, right? It's the idea that the individual voices should not have to be going like like they should have a line that has a continuity to it, has its own sort of shape that's nice, that is not based on these crazy intervals, right? And so it's a big way, like if I were to sit at the piano, right, I could play a chord progression where I have to go, and move to make these chords. I can play those same chords without moving much at all if I just use better voice leading, right? Now on the guitar, this might seem weird to you guys, I'm sure it is. I think of voice leading like, I think of my fingers as like little singers in the choir, right? And so I think constantly like, I don't want anybody to have to be having a crazy part where they have to jump wildly, right? So I'm thinking of, you know, my little four-note choir, trying to give them parts that are nice lines, right? And so an easy way to kind of start thinking about voice leading when you're creating chords is common tones, right? Like, are there notes that I can keep from one chord to the next chord, right? And that's going to ensure that there's this continuity and this connection from one chord to the next, right? So let's look at C, okay? I know you don't have your guitars in your hand, but can anyone think of another chord that uses at least one of the notes in this chord in it?
A minor.
A minor is a great one, right? So what notes are the same in A minor?
Your E string.
Yep.
And this one. Yeah.
Right? Great change, right? That's a very common change, right? 1-6. Great. All right. From A minor, any notes that we could keep and go to another chord? Also, feel free to just like be wrong. It's okay. Like you could just say a chord and go, oh no, not that one. That's okay.
F major 7.
Which one?
F major 7.
Great one, right? We were just talking about this, right? F major 7. I often teach F major 7 as just saying A minor, add your pinky, right? All right, so let's put that together. That's nice, right? It's always a little bit. Let me fix that. All right. Do you see what I'm kind of getting at here? So, like, when we have common tones, there's never necessarily a guarantee that one chord is going to sound great next to another chord, right? And that would be kind of corny if there was, right? It's kind of fun that it sounds like that. But let's see, we've got C major, A minor, F major 7. Where could we go from here? Any common? Back to C. Cool. So we've got 1, 6, 4, 1. That's a song, right? I can't think of it. Sounds
Is it Sam Smith?
Oh. Close. The Sam Smith one does. I think. Which Sam Smith is the older one, right?
Not the only one.
Yeah. I think it's that puts an E7 in there somewhere.
It's insane.
Yeah. I think you guys watched a YouTube video of me with this singer yesterday, right? She just sang on Sam Smith's most recent album, like a bunch of big choir people. Really cool. Yeah, right? So, one thing, and I don't know if you talk about this in your songwriting unit, but I think might be relevant is, and maybe I should have started here, what's a song? Like, now, this is a two-phase question. I want to ask you, like, as a fan of music, as a young musician, as a person, what do you think of as a song? And then I want you to think, legally, what's a song? I think those are two answers, okay? So feel free to answer either of those. You can shout it out. You don't have to raise your hand or anything. But what is a song like to you? And then what is a song to like the law? What do we think? The first part is easy. You can just be like songs that are happy, or you can really lean in. What is that?
I would say like a song is just like obviously music, but
I would agree with that, right? I think I don't know if you guys have this experience. I think songs and smell are some of the best like time traveling tools of all time. Like sometimes I'll hear a song and I'm like taken right back to the first time I heard it in a way that other things don't do that. Like it has a special connection to memory. I feel like it's similar to smell. You smell like you're like, oh my god, my mom used to bake those cookies, or like it works similarly. I don't think not all senses or experiences are that closely tied to memory, but I feel like songs really are. So I think you're right. Any other answers for that first part? Like, what does a song mean to you? And I'm not trying to downplay like the emotionality of it. I think it's actually really important. What's up?
It's kind of like a way to express yourself or talk.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that there's something about a song in that I'll even speak for myself, like things that I don't have the vocabulary to just like say to somebody. Maybe not have the vocabulary or don't have like the confidence to say to somebody. I'm like, oh, I can vaguely put that in a song and get that off my system, and in a way that is like cool. I processed that without having to like say it all out loud so clearly, right? So yeah, you're right. Okay, now let's talk about the second part though. Unless anyone wants to offer up another take on what a song is to them. I'm always curious about that. All right, so what's a song in the law? Like what's protected? It's been published, okay. Series of notes, okay. Now, question. Is that fair game? Or does somebody own that?
I mean, if it's already been like published and copyrighted, I guess it's fair game, yeah. But you can't publish it for your own.
So this is interesting, right? So, but we said how many Roman numerals did you go up to?
6.
7.
Either way, that's not a lot of chords, right? For us all to, you'd have to think they've probably all been combined in every which way, right? So how are people still writing songs, right? Okay, so in the eyes of the law, right, a song is basically lyrics and melody, right? Chords, not protected, right? Now we got close to that being a problem. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm not playing it very well because I don't really love the song. It's an Ed Sheeran song. I forget what it's called. Thinking Out Loud, right? It's a big court case a couple years ago from the Marvin Gaye estate, and they were saying, you stole this from Let's Get It On, which is the same chords. I don't even think it's in the same key. And had that case gone the other way, that would have been a really big problem for, I think, songwriting and music generally, because then all of a sudden, this might not be fair game, right? And that would be a problem, right? So, but in reality, it's lyrics and melodies are really like what's protected under copyright. It's not really chords. It's not really like drum grooves. Now, this would be a whole separate conversation. That's under the composition copyright, right? And you talk about publishing. That's a whole other thing. So there's, and I really don't want to make this a long tangent because it's so not interesting, but and so convoluted. But there's, when you make a song, the composition is one copyright, right? And that's the lyrics and the melody. The recording is another copyright. When people say, like, I own my masters, they own their recording. So if you were to take the recording, like sampling something, you could, if you sampled the chords, but you sampled them from the recording, you violated the copyright, right? Now, if you just replayed those same chords, fair game, right? Publishing is a different thing. Publishing goes back to like when selling music meant selling a piece of paper that had your music on it, and that's literally still like how the business operates, even though that's not, I've never sold a piece of sheet music in my life. So it's a little antiquated, but okay, so songs, in terms of what's protected, lyrics and melody, right? So chords are fair game. So I would also say, I don't want to encourage you to like go about it with a spirit of plagiarizing, but like learning songs that you like and figuring out the function of them. So if we said, okay, we like this, let's pretend it was the Sam Smith one with the E7. I don't remember how it, something like that, right? We could go, okay, 1. Anyone know how to explain this E7? What would we call that? For the key to C.
I like it 3, but like no 7.
Come on, 3-7, right? And then 6, 4. So we can go, cool. I really like the sound of that 3-7 going to 6. And we can go, cool, I'm putting that in my song. And I'm going to put it in a different key. I'm going to go in G. And now we've taken the idea and we can use it. So it's not necessarily in the spirit of like plagiarizing, it's in the spirit of like understanding the function and going, I like that function, and I'm going to take it. And for chords, like that is fair game. And guess what? Everybody else could be doing that too. They might just not be taking the time to understand the function, right? The sort of 3 kind of methods I want to, and then we're going to play. All right, 3 sort of methods we kind of blaze through, so feel free to like ask questions if you want to hear more about something, was taking an existing chord and altering it, so altering 1 or more notes of it to add color to it, right? I would say, just a word of advice, altering the bottom is going to have the biggest effect, right? Altering towards the top is going to have more like, it's going to tint the chord. If you alter the bottom, you might really change the color, right? Then we talked about moving shapes. So any chord that is not using open strings can move, right? And I would encourage you to try, next time you're picking up the guitar, try to not reach for any of the chord shapes that you know. Pick 1 note, play around with your other finger. I would either start with your first finger and build a chord going this way, or start with your pinky and build a chord going that way, and pick another note that sounds good with that first note, and hold those 2, and try to pick another note that sounds good with those 2. I imagine you're going to stumble upon a major or minor chord, or an inversion of those, because that's where your ears will probably lead you. But you could come up with your own smaller voicing that moves, right? And then you can move those around and see what you can come up with. And again, 5 frets or 7 frets are going to be perfect intervals, so you might find that those almost always will work to move a shape. And the last thing we talked about was like common tones, or thinking about voice leading when you're writing stuff, right? So, and that also helps even just with like, even just with playing songs you already know. If you think about, does anyone here struggle with like transitioning from one chord to the other chord in time? Is that hard for anybody? Yeah, that's hard, right? And so it's like, okay, I want to play this chord for the full bar, but I also want to be on time for the next chord. If you can look at what the common notes are, those are your pivot positions, right? Like, so if I'm going from C to A minor, sorry, this is just a bit of technique and thrown in here, but if I'm going to C to A minor, I can lift up everything except for this first finger and get to my A minor super quickly and pivot on those common tones. So look for the common tones even in the songs you already know. It's a great way to like make your transitions from chords a little easier by using those as a place to pivot the whole voicing, right? Okay, so those are the 3 sort of things we talked about. Any questions before we try playing some guitar? Okay, cool. Could we grab guitars? Is that all right?
Yeah. We'll need to grab the 2 electrics from the practice room too. We don't have enough.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. So for next semester, one of my stuff was I had there are only a few available classes. I know last year, I put myself down for 2. Is it possible to biggest gift of this relative during the masterclass techniques next semester. What do you know about that?
Wait, you're doing your decision on now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
That's how it typically works.
Oh, just one semester. Awesome. I will talk to my guidance counselor about it.
Alright. Mostly in tune? Kinda. Alright. So, let's try this. I want to try, can everyone just pick, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're good. Pick one note to start with, okay? And I want you to play it either with your first finger or with your pinky. And I have a feeling most of you are going to pick your first finger. But shouts out to whoever picks their pinky. And you're going to play one note on the sort of lower end of the guitar towards you with either your pinky or your first finger. And when you've got that note, give me a thumbs up. Cool. And once you've got that note, I want you to take your next available finger and find a note on the next string that you think sounds good with that first note. And when you've got that, give me a thumbs up. I want to hear what you got. Pretty much, yeah, that's a simpler version of the instruction again. You got one?
Yeah.
What you got?
E minor.
E minor. Okay, hold on. I want you to pick one that you don't already know. I want you to, you're going to create your own chord here. Okay. What do you have? Let's see, what do you got here? Oh, is that your mind?
No, I have
Oh, okay. It looks good. What do you have? I like that. Is that what you're playing? Yeah. You just made a major seventh chord. That's cool. Beautiful chord. I use that chord all the time. Right? So now watch. You can move that shape. Right? Yeah. Nice. Nice. You're just going with basically the power chord. Right? Yeah. The boy that opens, right? Yeah. Who else has a good one? Anybody? What do you have? That's nice. What's that? I like that. What is that? It's like an A69, major 7. That's pretty. I like that. I'm curious. Hold on one sec, guys. I know I said any chord that's not using open strings can move, right? But there's also some chords that use open strings can move too. If you think in that 5 or 7 fret thing. So if we took your chord you just played and moved it like here. So I moved it's separate. Yeah, there you go. That's really pretty too, right? That's a really nice chord. Everybody else got any cool ones? Back there. Are you doing this? This? Yeah, major 7. Really pretty. You can move that. I saw something over there. Anybody else? Okay, hold up one sec. We're gonna try the other one. So I would encourage you. I think one thing I'll say is I've been playing music for a really, really, really long time, right? And now I'm constantly trying to reverse engineer coming to it with childlike wonder and not knowing things, right? It's like I know too much now. And when I come to the guitar, I'm trying to approach it like a child or like I don't know everything that I know. It's really hard to manufacture that, right? And I have to trick myself. And sometimes I'll play the guitar left-handed or do things like that, right? But you guys have the advantage of you are kind of in a blend of not knowing too much and knowing some in a way that I'm legitimately envious of that sort of perspective on it. I wish I could see it through your eyes because it would be really fun and I would see things differently. So I would encourage you, as much as it's great to work on the shapes that you're learning and practice the things that he's showing you, but also explore. Take a little bit of time to just play around and explore and see what you find on your own. That's how all these things came about in the first place, right? So don't get too caught up in learning it. Also just play with it. It's called playing for a reason. All right, let's try the other one where we take an existing chord and alter it. Just so it sounds good in here. So we pick one chord that we're all going to start with. What chord? G. Can we pick it, everyone? G's a hard one to move on. C's great. All right, we're all playing C. All right. Beautiful. Now take a minute and see what you can add or move on that chord. And then give me a thumbs up if you got something interesting. What do you have? C over G. Oh, nice. Nice. Pinky on the G string. Right here.
Oh, pinky and lock.
Yep. You just turned it dominant, right? Hold up one sec. He just found a great one. He added his pinky right here on the 3rd fret on the G string. And that turns it dominant, which makes it want to move. So watch, if I went, now it wants to go to F, or elsewhere, right? That's great. That's a great change you can add, right? I use that all the time. What else do we have? What else did we add to the C? Are you adding that? That's crazy. I like that color. You just got an augmented sound. That's cool. What else? Add the 9. Yeah.
Let's give Scott our thank you, please.
Great work, guys. Thank you.